friends, welcome back to my channel. I'm Leslie from Joleelee Creations, and today we are making the As You Wish project box. It is a collaboration box with So Girly Fun and K.Dill Handmade patterns. I opened this box a few weeks ago on my channel, so if you missed that, I'll link the video down below in the description, so make sure you check it out before watching this video so you know all the contents of the box. The bag we are making for this box is the As You Wish Satchel by K.Dill Handmade. Currently, it is exclusive to this box, and the pattern can only be purchased with the contents of the box. It even came with the pattern pieces printed out on the inside, so you didn't have to worry about doing that. So with the box, I did do a video of that already. So let's go over the bag real quick. The front features a turn lock. We have a full flap, which I use the panel for, and then behind that flap is its own slip pocket. There is also a slip pocket in the front that I lined with the coordinating cotton fabric that came with it. If we flip it over to the back, it does have a nice zipper pocket on the back side, and I lined that with cotton as well, and the zipper pull that came with the box. If we flip it over to the inside, I lined it with the kit waterproof canvas and made a custom zipper overlay on my own. So everything that I used on this bag came in the kit except for the applique on the front flap, this black exterior vinyl, and the black accent that I did on my strap, but all other contents were made with everything that came in the box, and you don't need to have an extra vinyl or anything for the exterior. There's enough in the box to make the entire bag. I just wanted to do something a little bit different, and I had this applique in mind the entire time since I got the box, so I just thought it would look really good on a nice black background. So I really hope you enjoy this video, and let's get started. Oh, I did forget to add that I stitched this entire bag and all the top stitching with the Saya Swag red lipstick thread that in Tech 70 that came with the box. Alright, so we want to go over all the pieces before we get started. I am doing hidden D-rings on mine, so I did cut out an extra strip for that. I have my interior pocket panels that I made out of waterproof canvas. I have my exterior zipper. I have my gusset pieces, and I did interface my vinyl with a woven interfacing, and then I cut out the self-adhesive foam from Fabric Therapy to add to that. My front slip pocket, I did a vinyl, and this vinyl is pretty stretchy, so I did interface all of the vinyl with the woven. Then this fabric I also interfaced. Have my zipper tabs, my back lower pocket lining just with a regular interfacing, and then the exterior I added a foam. For my front flap, I did an applique on the front, interfaced with a woven and a foam out of the seam allowance. My back pocket lining is a woven. Then the bag body, I did the vinyl for the front and back, waterproof canvas for the inside. I have my zipper overlay that I customized. We have our webbing for our straps. And I have my full lining panel that I used for the panel on the top for the inside. We have our turn lock and our hardware. I want to start working with my gusset, and since I'm going to be adding hidden D-ring connectors, I added some extra interfacing on this vinyl, and I didn't add my foam just yet. So I'm going to add my connectors here, But first I need to make my tabs for my D-ring connectors. So I want to take my connector piece and I'm going to draw a line down the middle. Add double-sided tape to each side of the line. Fold everything to the center. And the same for this side. And now we need to top stitch down each side of the connector with an 1/8" seam allowance. Since I need 2 connectors, I'm going to fold this in half and trim down the middle. Want to take our hidden D-ring template and mark a center line down our gusset as well. I have marked the line where the pattern recommends attaching the gusset strap or the connectors as is. So I'm just going to use that mark to mark where my hidden D-ring connector is going to go. And we're doing 1" hardware. So I'm going to use my 1" connector because I want my D-ring to sit exactly where the connectors are in the pattern. I'm just going to line up my template just like it would be a regular connector line for this pattern. On both sides, again, this line is given to us in the pattern of where the normal connectors would be. So I'm just using that as a reference point. And we need to carefully cut along the lines that we just drew. And we're just cutting across this top little piece here. So again, on this side, cut my sides, across the top, and then meet that top line there. Okay, take one of your connector tabs, right side up, and tuck it into the hole that we just cut. Flip it back down the bottom so that it is wrong side up here. And we want to make sure this is tucked in nice and tight and straight, not pulled tight. So this should be straight here. We're going to flip it over and I'm going to stitch across the back side just above our cut line without going past our connector. Take your D-ring, slide it on, and tuck the remaining top part down into the hole. So you should have your connector nice and tight along the top. flip it over, and we want to stitch. So this top part here of our gussets out of the way, and we want to stitch along this little flap that's left here as close as we can to the hardware. And then now we can add a rivet to keep everything nice and secure here. We need to repeat for the other side. I've gone ahead and added rivets to my D-rings and added the foam to the back side of the gusset out of the seam allowance. We want to put that aside. We want to work with our back lower pocket. Take our longer zipper, and we want to take our zipper tabs and place them wrong sides down onto the end of. Stitch those down at 1/4 inch. And fold them back, right sides up, and top stitch at 1/8 inch. We are going to have a little bit extra zipper, so I want to find the center to line up on my panel. And I'm just going to make a little mark right in the seam allowance on the top and the bottom. That way I can take my back exterior piece, clip the centers of that, and now we can add our zipper. So I'm going to go wrong side down, lining up the center marks. Clip this in place. And we want to base this on at 1/8 inch seam allowance. Now I want to add the lower pocket lining face down, lining up the edges of the exterior. So there's going to be a little bit of our zipper overhanging, or zipper tabs. So I'm just going to line up those sides of the exterior and the lining. And stitch this down at 1/4 inch seam allowance. Move this zipper out of the way. And that foam gave me a little bit of an issue face down, so I'm going to try and restitch face up and see if I can get a little bit better stitch. Going to fold this pocket back around, wrong sides together, pressing everything really good. And I need to top stitch along the bottom of this zip. Oh shoot, my zipper pull is going the wrong way, so I want to fix that real quick. So I unpicked enough just to get to this zipper tab, and then I'm just going to cut the zipper tab off and make a new one. And I did this side, so it should be able to slide off this way. Should be able to slide it off this way and then back on this direction. I don't have very much room to work with, but it's better than unpicking the whole thing. Slide that on there, and then I should just be able to stitch on another zipper tab. Okay, so I have a new tab, but I'm going to put it right side down this way. Let's see, stitch that on. Flip that over and top stitch that. And then now we can just re-stitch this back down. Clean up these little guys. Line up our edges. Just try and line up those same holes best we can. Okay, let's flip back our panel now. Pull everything tight. To line up these bottom edges. It's be a little tight just because of the foam. So now we'll take our back pocket lining piece. We want to go right sides together with our panel. Line up all the edges. And then we're going to baste around the top and the bottom edges of everything, holding it all together. Okay, and now I'm going to trim off any of this extra zipper tab and just kind of clean up the bottom, anything that's sticking out. So there's our back pocket. Unzip it, and you can see the inside. Okay, we're going to take our bottom back panel, and we're going to take our front flap. We're going to put it right sides together, lining up the center marks of our zipper. and clipping that all the way across. We want to stitch that down at 1/4 inch. We're going to flip the flap up, push this down towards the flap, and we need to top stitch that flap down at 1/8 inch. Lifting up the flap will kind of help naturally guide that seam towards the back. So we have our flap and our back pocket. We want to take our flap lining, lay it face down, right sides together. And we're going to clip along the flap only. And I know from the other side that I want to stitch with a foam side up, and we're going to stop just below these curves here. So I'm going to start over here. Okay, let's clip these curves. We'll make it easier to turn. Now let's turn this flap right sides out through the hole that we left on the back side. Just want to roll these corners so that the pink side's not showing through the front on that flap. Because we have foam in there, it's going to be a little bit tough to kind of roll that corner, but we just want to make sure as we go that we push that corner out. Check the side. And now we want to top stitch starting at the seam here and all the way around our flap. And I'm just going to be rolling the edges over as we go just to keep the pink from popping through on the front side of the flap. Okay, the pattern has us installing the turn lock on the front at this step, but I think because I have so much going on this flap, I want to make sure that it's exactly in the right spot. So I'm going to install it when we're done, and I'm going to move on to the front slip pocket, and we're going to install our turn lock part on this side, and then that way once the bag's assembled I can still put the front part of the turn lock on. So just that way we know where it'll line up. I'm afraid if I don't, there's not much room for error here, so I really want to make sure that I put it on going the right way and I have enough room when we finish. So this lock needs to go up and down so that when it goes on, we can turn it locked closed. Okay, so needs to go on just like that. So I'm going to mark my center from our pattern piece. So I've already marked that. And then this one has two little screws on the sides. So because I want that even, let's see, maybe I'll do this on the back side. So we'll draw a straight line through our center point. So when I add my washer to the back, I'm just going to punch small little holes for those screws right on that center line. So what I need to do is I need to check that the hole is going to be big enough for this bracket to go through the back side. So I just need to check each one of these. This one's going to be a little too big. That one's pretty good. And then this one's perfect. So that's the one I'm going to go with to punch my holes. Okay, so we have our holes punched, and we're going to slide or push the actual screw holes into the back, through the back side, and make sure they come all the way through the back. Take your bracket, add our bracket to the back. So to make sure nothing's covering our screw holes. Okay, so I got my turn lock on the front, and I did have to add a couple layers of Decaville Heavy onto the back to make it thick enough. So if you're having trouble with your turn locks, you can kind of see the spacing between the front and the back plate of the front turn lock. See, there you go, right there. It's super thick. So if you're using a thin vinyl or cotton or anything like that, you're going to have to make it thick enough to get a tight fit, or it's going to be a little bit loose. So that's what I had to do for this one, because it is a floppier, softer vinyl. I had to make it pretty thick on the back side so that bracket would be nice and tight on the back. So just keep that in mind when you're doing turn locks, and make sure it's going in the right direction so that when we install the front piece, it'll turn to lock. So now we'll take our lining piece face down, put some clips along the top curve area. And we want to stitch along this top curve at 1/4 inch. Want to add some snips in the top area going around this curve. Flip the lining to the back side so they're wrong sides together, and kind of clipping this together as we go so it's nice and pushed out. And now we want to top stitch 1/8 inch along the top edge. Now we want to take our exterior pocket and place it on one of our exterior bodies, lining up the center points, clipping at the bottom and the sides. We want to make sure the distance between the top of the pocket here is the same. Now let's baste around this to keep everything together. Okay, so now we want to find the center of the long edge of our gusset. Put a small snip. We want to lay that right sides together with our exterior front, lining up those center marks there. Then I'm going to bring the top part of my gusset to meet the top part of my flap here. On both, or the side of the body rather. And then add clips all the way down the sides till we get to the corners. Once we get to the corners, we can add a couple snips, very small snips, because we have such a small seam allowance. And ease this around the bottom corner. And the same thing for this corner. Just adding a couple tiny little snips we go around that corner. Now we want to stitch at 1/4 of an inch all the way around our gusset. And now we want to do the same thing for the back panel. So lining up my center marks. Coming back around to the top. This hardware is pretty thick, chunky, so if you're using a thicker, chunky hardware, you may need to use a zipper foot to get in there real close to that seam allowance. You hit it coming around the other side, so just gonna have to be careful on this side. Okay, so we got that clipped, and now we need to sew along this side, starting at the top. Again, that hardware is pretty close, so just do the best you can. Okay, so I trimmed it down the seam allowance with pinking shears and then some around the edges, and now we can turn it out. Just make sure that we're not turning into that front pocket, that you're going between the two exterior bodies. and then we'll set this aside for now. Okay, so now we want to work on our lining, and I'm going to start with our zipper overlay, and we'll need one lining body, your zipper tape, your zipper pull, an overlay, and your lining pieces. So the overlay is going to sit at 1.5 inches down from the top. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a line at 1.5 inches and mark my centers of the top and the bottom. To add double-sided tape on the back of this overlay. So center your overlay, lining up the top of the overlay to the top of the line. Press down. Now we need to stitch around the exterior of this overlay. Pulled all the threads to the back, and now I need to tie that off. So next we can remove all the fabric from behind our overlay. So we have our overlay open. Take our zipper pocket lining. Make sure if it's directional, you're going the right way. And line up our zipper tape face up along the top edge. And stitch down at an 1/8 inch seam allowance. Up our zipper, press this seam down, and then add this lining to this side. And add some double-sided tape along the top of our zipper tape. And then add our zipper pull. And I add my tape before my pull just because it sometimes gets a little lump in the zipper tape, and so it's just a little bit easier to put the tape on before your pull. Now once we have our pull on, we can remove our double-sided tape. Oops. And then we need to center that along the inside of our overlay and on the fabric behind it. So we want to make sure that our fabric is lined up on our overlay. Our zipper pull out of the way. And then remove this bottom row of tape. And carefully lay it down flat. Flip up our pocket lining pieces, and we need to stitch stitch across the bottom of our zipper part of our overlay. So pull my thread tails long, drop it in my pivot point, and stitch across the bottom. Thread tails out long, pull it through to the back, and tie it off. Flip our pocket back down, and we need to stitch the remaining 3 sides of our box. And drop my needle right in the pivot point where we stopped, and we'll catch back up to this side where we started. Pull your thread tails long and tie off on the back. Now we're going to pull the side of our lining body up, and we're going to stitch closed the side only, leaving the bottom open, because that's what we'll use to close up the lining later. And then we want to trim the excess zipper so that both pieces are even. And I love drop-in lining so much that I'm going to actually close up the bottom of my lining here, and we're going to do this bag as a drop-in. So I do want to add a line on the top just to make it a little bit easier. At 1/2 inch. And I'm going to do the same on the top of my gusset pieces. And now we can find the center of our gusset. And the center marks of our lining body. And now we can attach the gusset just like we did for the exterior. So now we're going to stitch this on, and I do like a tad bit of a snug lining, so I do think I'm going to do a tad bit more than 1/4 inch once I get past this first 1/2 inch. So now I want to trim my seam allowance down pretty good for this lining so that it's not bulky on the inside. The top edge we need to over for the drop-in. Now for the drop-in lining, I want to add the tiniest little bit of tape right at the top so that we can fold this edge down. So we're going to butterfly open the side seams and fold that edge down to the line that we just drew. So if your machine doesn't like double-sided tape, you may need to do a 3/8 or 1/2 inch seam allowance just so that you can add double-sided tape and it not get in the way. Do the same for this side. Butterfly open the side seams and fold everything down to that line. I'm going to add a little piece onto the sides here with those seams butterflied open, and that'll keep the reduce the bulk whenever stitching. So now we have our lining with the top edge folded down all the way around. I've carefully drawn a line on the inside of our exterior. It's definitely much easier if you can do that from the beginning, if you know you're going to do a drop-in lining. But now I'm just going to add the tape all the way around that top edge. So now we'll peel off our tape and fold down to that line that we just drew. So I'm putting my lining into our main body, and I'm lining up the back zipper pocket with our back panel and clipping our side seams together. So right where those gussets meet, they should line up fairly well, and you can just clip those seams together. Then we'll add a few clips to keep that in place while we stitch it together. And now everything is clipped together, we're going to start top stitching. So now we'll take our threads and bring them to the middle. And tie off our threads. And then we'll poke these long ones down through the lining. Okay, so we have that, and now I just need to line up our turn lock and make sure it lines up where we want it. So we have it marked where it was before, or where it should be on the flap. That may pull it just a little too tight. No, it should be good. Right there. So I'm going to take my turn lock, line it up with the circle that I have already drawn from the paper pattern. And I'm going to draw a circle or oval of what needs to be cut out for that turn lock. We'll remove the screws. We'll need to make holes for these screws as well, like we did for the other side of the turn lock. I'm going to use this to mark the holes for the screws as well. I have a set of dies that can be used with my cam snaps. I'm just going to find something that is pretty close to what we need to cut out, and I think that one will do the trick. I'm going to take this over to my press and cut that area out. Okay, so I used my punch to cut out that oval and the 3 holes. So let's see if we can stick this in here. Line up everything. Off camera, I went ahead and added our crossbody strap. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it because I really wanted to use this patterned webbing that came with the kit, but it was so bright compared to the exterior. So what I did was I took a piece of black 1-inch webbing, so it's the same width as the webbing that came with the kit, and I just stitched right to it. So then it kept with the exterior. It has that red stitching that matches the bag, and then it has that fun pop of color on the inside of the strap that matches everything else in the bag. So that is our As You Wish satchel bag. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to like this video, leave a comment down below, and if you aren't subscribed, subscribe to get notifications for other videos like this one. Thanks!